Now let's take a look at redundancy and the reasons for it. Now, employer ceases to carry on the business and the purpose of the business itself ceases to exist. Let us say, for example, a company which is relying 100% on the supply of coal stops its activity because of the mine which is supplying coal has collapsed, or there is absolute seizure of operations. There is no longer a purpose and it has to stop the activity, and the purpose of the business in itself is lost. Or the employer goes into a mode wherein he doesn't have cash flow and is winding up and there is liquidation. There is no longer a business, a healthy business, and he has to cease it. So the employer ceases to carry on the business, or he completely uproots the business and changes to some place else. Requirements of the business cease or diminish. It's a carryover of the previous point wherein the requirements of the business ceases and the market potential for the company's products is diminished for reasons not related to the individual concern. There are certain factors beyond the employee's performance and his work related standards. These are the reasons why redundancy can happen. Causes of redundancy: it can be adverse trading conditions or introduction of information communication technology, wherein the introduction of a new technology results in the loss of a few jobs. Increased global competition with the emergence of new markets and developing countries taking over certain areas wherein they are providing cutting edge technology and efficient solutions, jobs will be lost in certain parts of the world. So this can be the causes of redundancy. Now, what are the HR responsibilities with respect to redundancy? What is the role that HR needs to play? Now, establish a redundancy policy. Everybody should be clear as to what will happen in case redundancy happens in my company. Now, as is the case with the 2008 recession, most of the companies were not geared for the recession. As a result, there was a haphazard approach and the morale of the employees was let down and it took a severe beating. So to avoid this kind of loss, establish redundancy policy. Now, develop redundancy procedures. When you have a policy in place, develop the procedures as part of the policy. How things needs to be carried out. Conduct advanced HR planning to avoid all the pitfalls of a sudden incident and a redundancy incident. Let's say HR needs to plan in advance so that anything which can be forecasted and can be avoided. Your surplus recruitment can be avoided and you can have a lean workforce to avoid a drastic incident such as redundancy. Advise and take part in managing redundancy. It does not stop for the HR just to design these policies and procedures. You have to take an active role as HR professionals in this process to advise and take part in the actual redundancy procedure. Now, how to minimize involuntary redundancy? As we mentioned earlier, advanced HR planning, adjusting your HR plans, encouraging voluntary redundancy by say resignations or voluntary retirement schemes, retraining and redeployment programs, and encouraging early retirement. Now, your retraining and redeployment programs will help your employees with considerable experience who have been trained in the culture of the organization to shift to other departments and to get a job or to make a career in adverse situations. Now, encouraging early retirement when it comes to a senior workforce, the measures which you give as an employer as incentives to leave early so that the redundancy efforts can be reduced. Now, what are the approaches to compulsory redundancy? There are two basic approaches. The first and most common is last in first out. People who joined in last are selected and they are shown the door. We call it LIFO or last in first out. Point score systems. Point score is a better system and an objective when compared to last in first out, because there the entire burden is taken by the people who joined the company in the latter part, and those who joined earlier survive the axe. Point score systems deal on a thoroughly objective basis by taking in merit cases. People who are meritorious and are talented, their job performance is evaluated, they are retained when compared to poor performance by assigning scores and analyzing the various factors involved, and then redundancy is carried out. What are the employee rights in redundancy procedures? There are three aims to the redundancy procedure: to treat employees as fairly as possible. Since human values and sentiments are involved, the employer needs to be fair in this entire approach. Now, to protect management's ability to run the business, the key factor to be considered is, after this exercise, the management should be still able to stand on its feet and run the business. To reduce hardship as much as possible, redundancy exercise is not an easy one for all the stakeholders, be it the management, be it the employees, the HR personnel involved, and for the society as a whole. So having a procedure established will reduce the hardships as much as possible. Now, coming to compassionate exit management, compassion is the key word because it is not an easy thing when it comes to redundancy. Informing employees by release interview, counseling, outplacement services, information on job. You need to have a release interview. Now, just to mention the fact that it gives him a sense of respect. The employee feels that yes, I am being taken care of, even in spite of the fact that my job is being lost. A release interview is conducted so as to explain him what is the exact reason for firing him or for phasing out the jobs. Counseling, employees may hit rock bottom in terms of motivation and morale, so you have to counsel them. Outplacement services, give them an opportunity to pursue career outside, so for them to seek a career outside, help them with outplacement services by referring to career agencies. Information on job, self-employment and retraining opportunities, provide them adequate avenues so that they can pursue a career outside, either through better description of the jobs available outside, either through self-employment techniques and retraining opportunities to increase the skill levels so that they can get a job and still survive in the market.